sessions today. So to start with my session, uh, this is the topic again on art. We heard from Srinivas in morning. So basically, I picked up this topic to see the current trends in art and the current challenges that we have in terms of implementation. So morning we have heard a lot of programming aspects about art. Now we will understand the validation challenges as well. So this presentation does not represent views of Navitas, and I take full responsibility for the work and errors if any. Moving on with the agenda. So first we will be looking at the need of the hour, the motivation, current trends and status of our implementation in pharma industry. And then we will understand the use case for our, what are the packages that we have in clinical trials for from R, and then a couple of real-time examples from pharma companies, how they're implementing R and R interface in SaaS. And most importantly, we'll understand the regulatory requirements around statistical software that we all have to be aware about. And then finally, the challenges around usage of R and how we can validate those R packages. So these are the four major segments of my presentation. So to start with introduction, first let's understand the bigger picture. Pharma industry definitely needs greater innovation to reach patients faster with affordable drug pricing and improved accessibility. With ongoing COVID-19, this is even more important than ever before. Some of the questions that we can ask ourselves is, do we have updated tools now? Are our current tools outdated? Industry is definitely seeking for better alternative technology and solutions. We know SaaS is costly. So do we have alternative tools, whether it is R or Python or any other tool? Do we have necessary tools to deal with big data, data like real world data? So what is the need of the hour? We need to innovate. We need to continue to innovate and move away from any traditional, inefficient process tools towards efficient, simple, easy to implement, reliable, and then finally affordable solutions. And when you look at the industry, everybody has their own definition of validation, whether it is regulatory or the pharma companies. So when we talk about a new software to be implemented across the companies, then collaboration becomes very important. So collaboration across industry stakeholders is needed to develop better technology ecosystem and agree on validation and regulatory benchmarks. And it is also vital that we develop our talent for the future. So most commonly asked questions by programmers, they ask me, Steve, what should I learn next? Should I learn R or Python? Hopefully we will answer some of those questions in this presentation. So let's look at the current trends. I must acknowledge, I did a mini survey. I reached several leaders in the industry and SMEs. So I collected the data about what's happening around it with R in all the companies. So I thank them on this call for their inputs. The first question I asked them was, what percentage of work is done using R at this point? So at this point, R usage is less than 10% in activities related to regulatory submissions. However, it was found not to be widely used in public health projects or healthcare economics, exploratory and scientific analysis, trend identification, etc. At some companies, it is even less than 5% for those tasks involved in regulatory submission. So this is the current trend. And the second question I asked them was, I was specifically interested in CDISC. Okay, are you using R for SDDM or RM dataset creation? I know we have R has capabilities, so I wanted to figure it out. But what I found is very less people are using for CDISC dataset creation. Instead, they are using it for specifically for graphs or plots like ggplot, specific statistical analysis where the SAS templates have challenges. And the next question I asked them was, should we replace with SAS with R or use both or other language? Because when you look at Python seems to be the winner with so many other varieties. But personally, looking at comprehensively all the data and then analyzing, what I felt was instead of choosing between SAS, R, or Python, we need to leverage the best out of each of this programming language to solve the appropriate data science problem. Because one size does not fit all. And we know not every problem is an AI problem. Not every problem is something that we can solve with one tool. So we need to see which is the tool that we need to adopt for the respective data science problem that we are solving. And there are some early adopters in the market. I wanted to learn from them. What are the challenges when they started using R? So one of the major challenges around regulatory compliance. So that is a challenge that they are facing. And if R has to be seriously considered for doing work related to regulatory submission, one needs to do risk assessment of R packages, feasibility analysis, and establish the process for R usage. It's ideal to start with some pilot projects with the necessary documentation, and then that would be the way forward. Like you can pick up a already completed project and then try to see if you can reproduce the results, and with the necessary documentation, there you are there. And the other aspects we look at is, so there's a famous saying, I have enough tools, said no data scientist ever. So we are always short of tools. And we have witnessed in the last decade that various tools have come up. And often we end up using different technologies, and when needed, it's difficult to integrate. Whether you take programming tools like R, Python, SAS, or you take big data tools like Hadoop, Hive, MongoDB, Cassandra, or you take visualization software like TIBCO, Spotfire, Power BI, or any other cloud computing platforms like Amazon Web Services or Azure. So and Spark and even NoSQL databases are becoming very common. So in summary, the takeaway for us is we need to stay ahead of technologies and pick the right tool for the data science problem. That's how we can stay ahead of the learning curve and make the best use of these technologies for the problems that we have in front of us. So with this background, let's get into the use case for R. R has various advantages that we have heard in the morning as well, but I have listed it 4. R is open source, that's one of the major advantage, and it is freely available, backed by huge community support. It can run and compile on various platforms like Unix, Windows, macOS, and Linux. And it has various statistical techniques like linear, nonlinear, time series, classification, clustering. It supports a lot of statistical packages. And most importantly, it can produce publication quality plots and with ease and including the mathematical symbols and formula. There are approximately 2 million users of R worldwide, and it is expected to increase in the last few years as we have seen the trend. Is R new? No, R is not new. It has already 3 decades of legacy. So it was originally created by Robert Gentleman and Ross Ihaka at University of Auckland, New Zealand, in the year 1993, and it is very similar to the S language, which was originally developed by Bell Laboratories. An initial version was released in 1995, and R core group was formed in 1997. So R core group are a group of expert statisticians. They have formed an organization called R Foundation, which basically supports our projects and promotes innovations in statistical computing. They have the read and write access to all the source codes for the base and the recommended packages. And a stable, version 1.0 was released in 2000. First official annual gathering of R users called User R happened in 2004. And by 2003, we witnessed that there were around 5,000 R packages available for users. And I just looked at last week, it was around 15,584 packages, which I found it in just last week. So the number of packages are increasing, the users are increasing, it shows a lot of promise. So with this, let's look at the clinical trial packages. There are many packages I saw, and I was trying to list out, but there are more than 50, 60, or 100. So I just listed out few. Like for example, Aitable is used to create tables. There is a paper on it. You can always refer. There's a package called Compare ODM to compare the medical forms in CDISC ODM format. CRT size for sample size estimation. BlockRand for randomization. We have dose finding, PACT for predictive analysis of clinical trials. And we have a package called SAS export to read and write the SAS export files. ADCT for adaptive design in clinical trials. ClinPK for clinical pharmacokinetics toolkit. Randomizer for randomization. BaseR has a lot of functionalities in terms of transformation and all that. It is very useful for us. And GReport for graphical reporting for clinical trials. So I have mentioned the links where you can get the full details of all the clinical trial packages and all the brand packages, 15,000 plus packages. With ongoing COVID-19 crisis, I found that there are already a lot of packages on COVID as well. So where basically they provide daily summary of coronavirus cases by state and province. So here is a small piece of R code. And those who know R, you know that we start with installing a corresponding package, then loading the package. So here we are running the report by country or by state. Even we can go to the much further level like by city. So with this, let's understand some of the real-time examples of R in pharma companies. So the first case I'd like to present is an Amgen. So Amgen historically are using SAS as the primary tool for their analysis. However, they had challenges with graphical templates using SAS. So in the year 2014, they have set up the qualified R server, and in 2015, ggplot was adopted for graphs because they wanted to use both SAS and R, and they both were the environments were in the separate servers. They wanted something to be integrated, some tool to be integrated. So they use Microsoft Deploy R, which is an integration technology to integrate R and SAS platform. So basically, they have used Proc Groovy, which enables SAS code to run Groovy code on the Java virtual machine. And in this code, you can see Amgen R code SAS macro has been calling, and then there is an interaction. So Proc Groovy is used to invoke the Java code that calls the deploy on Java client library. So more details can be found in a paper written by David Edwards from Amgen in this path. Let's look at another example. So Roche has been using R widely, and one of the applications that they developed using Shiny is called Biostatistical Web Applications and R Procedures. It is so-called the largest Shiny app in the world with 500 plus buttons, automations to run the reports with hundreds of thousands of lines of code and so much functionalities in terms of reporting. So basically, the Roche Diagnostics team, the QA team in the Roche Diagnostics, were dependent on biostatisticians for some of the reports. So biostatisticians automated this using Shiny, and now even people who don't have much knowledge on R can run those reports, and it saves them real time. They will have spent either otherwise consulting with biostatistician. This has been regarded as one of the widely used app within Roche, and Roche is also seriously considering R to be used for series datasets creation and then tables, listings, and figures. They do have, you mentioned a package that they reviews, and it's on GitHub actually, you can find it, R tables. It's used to generate tables as part of data analysis. And they're using ggplot, grid, and lattice for graphs. So there is an interesting webinar from Roche. You can always refer where they explain the role of R in the drug development and how they locate it across implementing across drug development. And there's an additional article on BioWar. So let's also understand using the R interface in SAS. So in 2009, SAS IML Studio application introduced a mechanism for calling R functions from programs written in the IMS Plus language. So basically, it's a proc IML, and you can see this example where we are defining the options R language. By default, it is no R language, but we have to define it as R language using proc options. And then we can use proc IML where we can use this function export dataset to R. It exports the dataset from SAS library into the data frame called DF. And there are two lines here, submit / R. So anything written after that and anything written before end submit, you can write the R code there. And here we have written a simple function called names DF to display the names of those data frames. These are the names that you can see. There are various papers which talk about how we can interface SAS and call our code to generate some graphs or some of the things that we cannot do in SAS. So there are various examples in many paths here. Please do refer once the slides are available. And talking about R Studio cheat sheets, so we know that R can be programmed in various integrated development environments. You can either program using R Studio, which has a free version and a commercial version. You can use Jupyter Notebook, or you can use RBox, or you can use IntelliJ. So when we talk about R Studio, even in its free version, it has got cheat sheets. Cheat sheets are very, very useful. I found that for packages like Base R and the Advanced R, which is widely used, and Tidyverse, which is one of the widely used and recommended package for data import, tidying up, manipulation, visualization, programming. You have the cheat sheet there. DP layer for data transformation, ggplot2 for data visualization, and LubriDate for dates and times, GoLM and Shiny for building the apps using R Shiny. We also have cheat sheets for the packages called MLR for machine learning, Keras for enabling the use of Keras and TensorFlow in R for deep learning. And there's a package called Reticulate, which using Python with R together can be done using that. So there's a cheat sheet on how to use that package. and R Markdown, which is basically to reproduce your work by reading the code. So you can find the detailed list of additional cheat sheets in the below path. So with this, let's also understand the regulatory requirements. In year 2015, FDA released statistical software clarifying statement, and they say they does not require any specific software. They doesn't mention whether it's SAS or R, any particular software to be used. But all that they want is it should be fully documented, including the version and build identification. And the second thing is the result should be reliable. And the third thing is software development testing procedures should have been followed. Basically, SDLC, software development lifecycle testing procedures, appropriate testing of the software should be done, and the necessary documentation of the source code should be available. And in year 2018, they released another document called Study Data Technical Conformance Guide. So which basically talks about again delivering the software programs. Like sponsors should provide the software programs used to create all ADAMs and TLFs, especially those associated with primary and secondary efficacy analysis. And the main purpose of requesting the submission of these programs is to understand the process by which the variables for the respective analysis were created. And it has to be submitted in the ASCII format. So moving on, this is the most important section of this presentation, understanding the challenges. Our strengths are also called challenges because R is free, but it's an investment. Now we already have established systems. And when we talk about the replacement of the entire system across the enterprise, building a new software which can interact well with other dependent softwares, and facilitating the learning curve by the employees, and a lot of efforts in terms of writing those. Now we all have set macros. So can we rewrite all those HDTM, ADAM, TLF macros using R? So it is definitely time taking and challenging. And R has many packages. If you see which packages are validated, R packages may come from anywhere and be written by anyone, or may not follow a typical SDLC, because base and the recommended packages are written by the R Foundation teams, which are a team of experts. Anyone else can contribute to the CRAN, which is basically the comprehensive archive network. Me, you, anyone can actually write a package and upload it. Of course, while uploading, we have to follow certain technical checks. But those are not sufficient when we talk about regulatory submissions. So that is the challenge we face. So our foundation has come up with two documents in the support of these regulatory submissions. One is on the regulatory compliance and validation issues. Basically, it's a guidance document for the use of R in regulated clinical trial environments in the year 2018. There's another document where they have clearly, transparently has put forward the software development lifecycle process that they use to develop this R programming, test those R program packages, release and maintenance. For example, source code is managed via Subversion, and archive files are available, as zip files to download as tarbals, and the version history is always updated. The track changes are always done, and the major version of R comes every year in the year of April, and the minor patches can happen any time of the year. So these two documents will clearly define how they document for the base and the recommended packages. Of course, these two documents do not talk about the contributed package, which can be written by any user. So when we talk about contributed packages, we still need to ensure that they are validated. So there is a cross-industry initiative. It's called R Validation Hub. Various pharma companies are participating in this organization. The mission of this initiative is to enable the use of R by biopharmaceutical industry in a regulatory setting where the output may be used in submissions to regulatory agencies. The focus of this group is on designing a framework that assesses the quality of an R package and create a repository of accepted package. Can someone give me a guarantee that this package is good? Okay, go ahead and use it in your study. So that is something that requires an effort. Just like when we write our macros, we do testing. So when we want to use particular R package, definitely we need to do certain element of testing by assessing risks. So in order to do testing, first we need to assess what are the risks. So that's where the risk assessments come into play, where we need to understand how widely the package has been used, whether the software development lifecycle testing procedures are maintained or not, whether the good programming practices are maintained or not. So before we go ahead, these are the pharma companies who are involved in this validation hub initiative. They basically contribute to the effort through regular group meetings or as well as the various work streams. We do have some of the CROs as well in this list and many more companies. So when we look at the approach, so the validation approach, so if you see, this is the approach that they are proposing. They have come up with the 4 criteria. So when I take a R package, so first thing is when you want to implement a package, there are a lot of dependent packages as well, which are called imports. We need to definitely check, validate them as well. So, but when we talk about the main package, when we have to do risk assessment, first thing is to see the purpose, whether my package is for the statistical purpose or for the non-statistical like transformation and stuff. If it is for statistical purpose, we need to take extra care and we might have to do extra remediation and testing because often the statistical models may impact our primary and secondary point analysis. So we need to have expert statisticians who can actually validate using the known results and the known methodologies from the literature. And the second risk criteria that we need to consider is how well the package is maintained. So basically, when somebody has developed the package, if he has maintained the SDLC, software development lifecycle processes, we can expect less errors or less bugs. So one can expect, if the code is versionist is clearly maintained or not, whether the good programming practices are maintained or not, whether we have, the code, source code available for us to see it. So all those criteria will account for the, good practices. And if we are confident, then we can definitely proceed. But if we are not confident, we need to really subject it to additional testing. And when we talk about open source software, community plays a vital role. So you can see, is the package widely used? So if the package is widely used, that means we are little confident that the level of risk is maybe less, but we cannot guarantee. Again, if there are more number of downloads, the package is exposed to more data, and over a period of time, obviously it should be of good quality. And we always have to double check how well the code is maintained throughout the years and how optimal the code is working. However, based on all these criteria, you can finally come up with a total cumulative score or average score, and then decide whether to include your package into your environment or you don't want to include, reject it. And if you definitely need that package for your studies or your review work, reporting work, you better have to go ahead and develop just like you do the macro validation. You have to take our package, first define the user requirements, then program against each user requirement and test it, have the documentation with you, and then you'll be more confident. So this is about the validation assessment framework. So with this, I'd like to close with key takeaways from the presentation. So data science is evolving fast. Industry is looking for better alternative solutions to unlock valuable insights from rich and diverse data. We have to acknowledge, protect time to learn, and play with new languages. That's the key. Innovation and collaboration is very vital across industry stakeholders to develop better technology ecosystem and agree on validation and regulatory benchmarks. And instead of choosing between SAS or Python or other tools, leverage the best of each of these languages to solve appropriate data science problems. And finally, subject safety, right? So data quality and scientific integrity should never be compromised. That's where we need to ensure there is a proper risk assessment is done to ensure the regulatory compliance and develop those validation and documentations. And these are the references that I have used. And I have also written a recent article on LinkedIn in detail. So I would kindly recommend to read that. So with this, I'd like to thank Fuse for giving me this opportunity, and thank you everyone for listening to me.